Welcome back to reviewers for first ever episode of Gurus Cloud Connect for 2021. This is going to be a big year, we hope. The topic of today is supply chain planning and demand planning trends in food and beverage for 2021. We saw a lot of big changes happening in the industry last year, and we think that's going to be going forward into this year. Our episode guest for today is the excellent Sven Anapu, who is a Senior Director of Business Consulting at Blue Ridge Global.
And Blue Ridge is a supply chain and demand planning solution that works cohesively with NetSuite. So naturally at Gurus, we're interested. They're very popular in the food and beverage space, an industry that has seen a spike and as a result, an increase in demand for digital solutions in 2020, with countless businesses looking to scale up to meet growing demand. We're looking forward to highlighting some of the tools that are available. So why don't we bring on Sven and just get to it.
Welcome to Gurus Cloud Connect, your one-stop tech talk where we discover the best business tools with the experts behind them. Filmed on set in a live setting with our gurus in Montreal. Gurus Solutions is North America's largest Oracle NetSuite ERP services provider. Visit their website at gurusolutions.com with your hosts Ethan Bozoglu and John Serino.
Hey Sven, welcome to Cloud Connect.
Hi Sven, happy to have you on board.
Hey, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Sven, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your role at Blue Ridge?
My role here at Blue Ridge, I basically I work with our clients both from a prospect perspective and from existing clients, really to help them go ahead and strategize, where they're going for and planning for their distribution networks. And with the clients, with the prospects, a lot of times in helping them really to understand what is it really that they're looking for. Sometimes they really don't know what they don't know.
And can you talk a little bit about Blue Ridge and the kind of clients that you usually work with?
Blue Ridge has been in existence for, I guess about 15 years now. And primarily we were focusing on the wholesale distribution side of the business. We've since gone ahead and moved into the retail market as well. But really, when you're looking at verticals, the verticals that we're dealing with are really across the board. Food service, food wholesale, food and beverage, wine and spirits, hard lines. It's really across the gamut. If a prospect has inventory and they buy inventory, then we're a solution they have to talk to.
When people reach out to you, what are they asking for?
Really, they're just looking to, in some cases, streamline. In other cases, they're looking to really impact their service, and others they're looking to really reduce inventories.
And when we're talking about supply chain planning in food and beverage industry, I think there's been a massive shift in the conversation around supply chain without beating around the bush with COVID. Obviously, a lot of things have changed for food and beverage, especially in wholesale distribution.
Heading into 2021, I think what the companies that we work with have found is that they were almost caught by surprise, if you will, and they don't want that to happen again. What they really want to do is they want to make sure that when there is a return to normalcy, that they're able to go ahead and obviously focus on those items that they were replenishing, they were selling on a regular basis, but now they have a whole new, in some cases, a whole new business line that they need to go ahead and manage. And they need to be more proactive. They need to think about, I hate to say it, but the next pandemic that's going to happen. And I don't mean a pandemic, but the next disruptor that's going to happen, how do they handle it?
One of the terms that we heard floating around a lot in supply chain in 2020 was the bullwhip effect.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what that is and how it's impacted supply chain in 2020?
Think of it as like a ripple in a lake. You drop a drop of water and you can see it spreading out. And that's what's happening with the bullwhip effect. Examples would be with COVID, we had some items where demand just went right through the roof. Well, with demand going up through the roof, you're going to have changes in demand variability. All right, well, those changes in demand variability affect how much safety stock you're carrying. How much safety stock you're carrying affects really capacity at the DC level. So all of this really is really a migration from what seems to be a small change and actually ripples up and becomes a big change.
Based on what you're saying, we're seeing buyer trends transform. I mean, I don't think going into 2020, we really foresaw the popularity of basic household items like toilet paper and hand sanitizer, right? So going into 2021, how do you think buyer trends are going to transform the industry and impact demand planning in general?
Before we had COVID, we never really thought about stockpiling toilet paper, right? It was only when we were worried that it wasn't going to be available that we ran out and we bought every single piece of toilet paper we could find, whether it was good or not. As we get back into the normalcy, we're going to see people going out and really buying the things that are going to be making them feel good again. All right. And these are the normal things, right? But, you know, with that, there's a whole, a whole nother analysis they need to do. How do they get back into inventory, into stock, into position on those items that they sold once and they weren't selling now? They've got to be able to do it quick.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the difference between supply chain planning and sales and operations planning?
It's heavy lifting versus fine tuning. That's really what we're talking about. With the actual demand planning, what you're looking at is you're looking at the minutia, the item level, location level metrics. How is the item forecasted? What does the demand look like? What is the safety stock involved with it? What is the lead time between the manufacturer and the DC? These are all the heavy lifting pieces that need to be managed by a demand planning solution. When we start to get into S&OP, what you're talking about is fine tuning at a higher level. So it's about category management. It's about channel management. So you want to take all the information that you have that's at that item level and you aggregate it up so that you can plan better.
What is the impact of price on demand? And, doesn't price drive demand and demand drive price?
The thing is that there are a lot of components that really kind of fit in with that price demand picture. All right.
Mm-hmm.
For example, there are definitely categories that you don't want to make adjustments to. Overstocks, you do. You want to reduce price on those. All right. But for inventory where you've got critical inventory leads, you don't have a lot of inventory, you don't want to reduce price on those guys. So when we're going in and we're really analyzing price, we've got to look at a number of components: inventory level, the channel that you're selling into. For example, e-commerce. E-commerce is excruciatingly sensitive to price changes. So that's something we've got to look at. Time of the year. You're going to pay more for ice cream in the summer than you're going to be paying for it in the winter, right?
Sven, I brought this up earlier, but for listeners who don't know, what is forward buying?
There are two different types of forward buying. One of the types would be when you're really preparing for an event. So you've got to have product available. If you're opening up a new DC, you've got to go ahead and preload that distribution center with inventory before the demand actually occurs. Within Blue Ridge, when we're talking about forward buying, we're talking about a different type of preloading of inventory, and that would be an investment buy. So if there's a price increase, if there's a price decrease. So one of the things that you also need to take into consideration would be the tariffs also. And that would be a type of forward buying where you're really looking to bring in more inventory, but the purpose is, rather than preparing for an event, the purpose is to go ahead and increase your inner margin.
Let's say I'm a food and beverage business and I'm looking for the best supply chain planning solution for my company. What am I looking for?
I think you've got to look at a solution that's going to be able to address, a number of issues. Perishability, obviously, is one of those issues. And when we're talking about perishability, it's a lot more than shelf life. You need to be looking at really how do you handle ordering product multiple times in a week? Because when you do that, you've got multiple or dynamic order cycles. You've got varying lead times within the week. All of that needs to be considered. And for a food and beverage organization, that's critical. Seasonality, that's obviously something that's very, very important. And, seasonality is something easy to go ahead and talk about. We all know what it is. But to go in there and to apply seasonal profiles, that's probably one of the trickiest things in the business. And you need to be really careful, because a good profile is wonderful, but a bad profile that could be the kiss of death. We got to make sure that when we apply them, we apply them correctly.
I know that Blue Ridge have a really interesting solution for demand planning for NetSuite. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that is?
The solution that we have for NetSuite is it's one of those all-encompassing solutions. It provides the NetSuite customer with the ability to go ahead and plan for and bring in that forward buy inventory, whether it is events or it is for a discount opportunity. It is the solution that will go ahead and do the forecasting, the calculation of safety stocks, forecast the lead time for you, build the orders as well. And really the relationship that we have with NetSuite is a wonderful one from the consumer perspective, because the work that has been done in things such as the NetSuite Suitelets has been phenomenal. It's been able to it's given our customers the ability to go ahead and implement significantly quicker than we could with any other ERP.
At a high level, I've heard the relationship in Blue Ridge and NetSuite described as, Blue Ridge is the crystal ball. So while NetSuite gives you visibility across your business, Blue Ridge is that crystal ball that lets you predict, hey, based on this, I think this is what I foresee for the future. This is what I need to do. This is what I need to allocate resources to.
NetSuite is providing Blue Ridge with the source master, with the item master. All of that information is being provided to us so that we can then do like that heavy lifting I was talking about earlier,
right,
and give those orders back to NetSuite.
Sven, at what point do businesses in the food and beverage, in food and beverage manufacturing and distribution, when do they realize they need a solution like this? I mean, obviously there's an evolution to every growing company.
Yeah.
When do they reach out to you? What are some of the pain points that make them realize, wow, I need to look into something like this?
Companies are much, much more proactive, and they got to be proactive because of the competition. Competition is greater than it's ever been before. Everybody wants to have the best. They want to be the best. They want to be number one. And you know what? They either want to be number one for one or two reasons. They want to own the market, or they're preparing themselves to be sold. And that's really when customers are looking. When they decide they want to take the market, or when they decide, hey, listen, we need to look better so that we can go ahead and sell. That's really what a lot of the driving factor is with the companies today.
How does Blue Ridge software exactly complement NetSuite's ERP system? What are the gaps that it fills?
With the Blue Ridge solution, that forecast is used to help go ahead and build orders, to understand how much inventory is actually required for the lead times associated with that item and that source. What is the item level safety stock? Forecast is used for that. Order cycle, right? We've got to understand what is the demand going to be during the time that the order cycle is going on. So it's all of those components, then being able to go ahead and look at MOQs and events and forward buys, and building up to an order that is a right size, profit-oriented, service level driven order. That's the magic.
Sven, in an industry where, predicting buyer trends is so important to impact things like forward buying, do you feel that because of the current situation, that, predictive buying trends is more difficult in 2021?
One of the things that a lot of the food service organizations and food and beverage organizations did is they typically like to forecast within a larger window. They look at typically a 4-week monthly window they like to forecast. As soon as they noticed that there was a trend occurring and the system measures that trend, they have the opportunity to go ahead and change that forecasting cadence to be quicker. So the system responded quicker, and they found themselves actually also getting in much better shape from a forecast accuracy perspective. So my answer is, I don't think it's getting harder. I think it's getting easier. Even with some of the advanced seasonal capabilities that are out there, it's requiring maybe a different kind of buyer today, one that's more analytic. But if you have a buyer that is analytic, who's asking the questions, the tools are out there to make their job very easy. We have a customer that within the first week of COVID hitting their business, and they were in a different kind of business where the demand actually shot right through the roof, right? They didn't have any restaurant shutdowns, any school shutdowns, anything like that. But they were able to respond very, very quickly within that first week to the demand changes that were happening. They made inquiries and they were able to go ahead and make some adjustments that allowed this organization to maintain a forecast accuracy of about 98% during a COVID period. Now we've got other organizations, I mean, specifically within food service, where it wasn't huge demand in the beginning. It was, other than specific categories, it was just the bottom of the floor just dropped out. And again, they needed to be able to react very, very quickly.
How do you think that's impacting growth strategies for manufacturing companies in the food and beverage space? I mean, they must be thinking differently about things now.
When we say they're thinking of things differently, it's like fashion. You know how they say fashion always repeats itself?
Right.
Well, what we're seeing now is what's old is new again. And what I've been seeing is a much, much more collaborative environment between food and beverage and the manufacturers. The food and beverage distributors are able to provide, really accurate buy projections, sell projections, inventory projections that the manufacturers can go ahead and use to take advantage of in their production planning. And those manufacturers that are taking advantage, we're finding are able to supply product much better, number one, but number two, they're starting to take on a mind frame of the distributor, of the wholesaler. So we almost see kind of like not just a sharing of information, but a transformation of the way the organizations are thinking. They're almost becoming one.
Eventually, we'll have a vaccine. What do you think the buyer trends will be post that vaccine?
What we've got to be able to do is we've got to go back to post-COVID, post-pandemic, and look to see what the demand patterns were prior to the pandemic. And those are the levels that we need to get to. Now, the data is out there, and ERP solutions are going to have that. It's not necessarily easy to get to. So a solution like, Blue Ridge, with NetSuite is having that information available, but being able to get to it quickly. What we really want to be able to go ahead and do is to take that demand occurred and we want to filter it, right? Because we don't want that COVID pandemic related demand to affect what our future demand is going to be. So for the prospects out there that are looking, make sure that you've got a system that has the ability to go ahead and filter that type of information. You want to have it available so you can plan in case it happens again. But when it's not happening, we have the ability, or we need to have the ability to filter it out because we want to get to that state of normalcy.
I just want to go back to, buyer trends, because we didn't really talk about predicting new trends.
Times are going to change, and so we do have to have the ability to go ahead and look, see what those new trends are going to be. And one of the things that I really see a movement towards is with artificial intelligence, AI, specifically with neural net forecasting. And neural net forecasting, it's a great thing to go ahead and drop at a cocktail party because everybody thinks you're really smart. But really what we're talking about is we're talking about taking, complex linear relationships, all right? But we've got to understand what the cause and effect is between that. And so what we have to be able to do is identify trends within trends, right? So the purchase of this particular item actually drives this one, which drives this one. Those are the types of things that we need to understand. And that's something that neural net forecasting that Blue Ridge is working on is going to help.
For listeners that are considering either NetSuite or Blue Ridge as a solution, really, is there one that should be implemented before the other?
It's really going to be a situational decision, to be quite honest with you. There are advantages to either. In the day, the ERP was a must-have, a need to have. and something like a Blue Ridge was a nice to have. Today, because of the competitive environments, because, you know, business is changing, we're really more focused on things like the bullwhip effect, you know, the kind of the things we're talking today. Solutions such as Blue Ridge are becoming more and more must have. So really, I do think it depends on the situation. If you have an ERP solution that you can live with for a period of, you know, 6 to 9 months, giving you the opportunity to go and implement the Blue Ridge solution. We've got customers who have actually paid for the ERP implementation through the use of Blue Ridge. But keep in mind, if you don't have that ERP solution, it's probably a better thing to go get install that first, because Blue Ridge, you know, as I'd mentioned earlier, is dependent on the item master, the source master information, and, you know, good information begets good information. Bad information, well, that's not a good thing.
Sven, I agree. I think it's completely situational. I think, you know, whether you're in an ERP already or shopping for one or just trying to optimize it, you may contact Blue Ridge or you may contact Gurus. Either way, our companies collaborate and we work together to create wonderful solutions. We will have your contact information as well as links to Blue Ridge at the bottom of this video, info@gurusolutions.com if you want to reach out to us. Either way, we can get the conversation started with both companies. This has been a great conversation. Sven, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. I learned a lot. I'm sure our viewers appreciate the content as well. And we hope to have you again one day soon.
Well, I look forward to it. And thank you very much for having me.
Sven, it's been a pleasure.